Well, I don't think so. I think that there are many facets of privacy which, apart from it being an individual right, are not taken into consideration, such as the way in which various information practices affect groups of people or affect the entire society. And while I think it's very important that we don't lose the idea that privacy is a right, I think it's insufficient. And in regulating it, I think we need to go wider than that and think about what effect do various kinds of information practices have upon other values, such as dignity and autonomy, and also on groups or categories of people who may fall through the net in terms of privacy regulation. It depends upon what you mean by culture. If you mean whole countries, national culture, and so on, I think we can find that there are some countries or cultures that are more privacy aware through their historical factors or otherwise, and others that are not. Now, I think that if you're trying to understand the way privacy can be regulated across a variety of cultures, then you come up against possibly a conflict between the idea of privacy as a universal human right and more particular understandings of privacy, even within society. The culture, for example, of certain kinds of people, whether they're young people doing Facebook and all of that, compared to older people who don't do that and therefore have a different understanding of how they are affected or not affected, then that has to be taken into consideration as well. But it's a very difficult question because culture merges into the idea of context. In certain contexts, there are norms in which privacy may be violated. In other contexts, those norms are not necessarily violated by the way information gathering, information use takes place. Well, there are two parts of that. One is because national security, particularly when one is thinking about terrorist threats and so on, are relatively easy to be portrayed as the number one priority of governments. That governments will say our number one priority is to keep people secure and keep people safe. I'm not saying that they shouldn't say that, but when they say that privacy, therefore, is normally considered to be much less important, then I think that's taking a fairly short-term view of it. Secondly, when they talk about balancing the one with the other, it's very rare for them to say how they do that balancing, how they what they put in the scales, if you're talking about balancing, and it may be that one person may balance it different from another, and yet both of them be equally concerned with both national security and privacy. So I think it's a very difficult area to operate in if you're using terms like balance, and if you're using terms like national security and a term like privacy. So everything is difficult in that area, and ultimately it depends upon having maybe deeper thoughts and also perhaps a wider public debate about national security.